Welcome back to the second hour of this afternoon edition of Kivumbi 2017, our unrivaled coverage in the run-up to the election. At this hour, we will be crossing over to Kakamega, where our reporter Trixie Gado is standing by to speak to the county regional commander on the level of preparedness. And studio, right here with me, will also be seeking expert opinion on the timelines, responsibilities and expectations of both the voters and politicians in the countdown to Tuesday's vote. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim once again, and welcome to Kivumbi 2017. Of course, right here on KTN News, this is your election headquarter. Now, in studio with me on my far left is Mark Bichachi, who is also a political analyst. And then we have Professor Macharia Munene from the United States International University. He also doubles up as a political analyst. Many thanks, both of you, for joining us at this hour.
Thank you.
No, let me start with you, Mark. Focus now is on, should I call them individuals, the voter and IEBC?
Yes.
You agree with me?
Absolutely, absolutely. The key thing now is for the voters to be well prepared to turn out. That's the most important thing, because this election at the end of the day is going to boil out as to how many people actually showed up to vote. That's going to be critical. Second thing, voting correctly. Knowing how to mark the ballot paper, knowing which stream you're on, knowing basically the modalities of that day. And then the honors, the big honors, actually, the star on the stage is the IEBC in terms of making sure that the ballot papers are there, they are stamped, they're correct, making sure that their personnel are of high quality, high character and moral standing, coordinating with the police and the various arms of government to make sure you have a smooth election, and then, of course, counting of the election, and that goes into now the party agents, and now I hear candidate agents have been allowed as well, and just making sure that things are counted correctly, then tallying and transmission of the data. We hope that it's smooth and quick as possible, and then, of course, there's the live portal which media houses and the public will be able to access. So that's really how it's looking going into the next 2 days.
What about the judiciary? I think I forgot that.
The judiciary really will be after. It will be after the election. And given the number of candidates, we've got over 4,000 candidates. Actually, no, 11,000 candidates. 14,000, yeah. 14,000 candidates in this particular election. So you can imagine those are nearly, minus the number of posts, those are nearly 13,000 possible petitions in this particular election. So the judiciary does have a lot of work to do. The rules have changed a little bit, which should make it easier for them to dismiss cases or to give verdicts. So it's going to be interesting.
Prof.
Yeah. Well, I think the preparations are good. I think the IBC is ready.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. There's no reason to be concerned. And as Mark pointed out, the stress is for each voter to ensure that the ballot papers that you get are stamped. Because in case they are not stamped, it may be a lost ballot. So to avoid the possibility of a vote being thrown out, for whatever reason.
It's something the IBC did communicate yesterday, and they had some kind of contradicting information. Can you just clear the air on that for once?
My understanding is that the ballot paper must be stamped. That's why they have a stamp.
Yes.
And to avoid any doubt, each voter must insist that the paper be stamped. The contradictions by the IBC, I think those are internal confusions, which should be cleared. But the official position, as far as I understand, is that the ballot paper is supposed to be stamped. And once it is stamped, then you mark it properly. One mark, not two. Only one place, not two or three. Sometimes you have cheeky people who misadvise the voters. Say, you tick here the person you want, and you cancel here the person you don't want. Now for an innocent voter, they might do that. So to avoid any confusion of any kind, it is only one mark in one place per ballot paper, no more than that. And then you go and put it in the right box. The presidential box is very clearly marked, that if you are voting for whoever you want to be president, then you put it in the right box. Do not put the presidential ballot on the MCA's box, something like that. So this clarity needs to be there,
yes,
so that everybody who goes to vote on Tuesday is clear. And if they need any assistance in terms of information, I think they should be given. And I don't think there will be anything wrong with an official, IBC official, explaining to people right at the beginning.
Of course, the parties also have their agents.
Yes.
And now, Mark, something that both NASA and Jubilee have been zeroing in on most of the campaign season, before, of course, it's closed down yesterday, is voter turnout.
Yeah.
How important is it?
Oh, it's absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical. In fact, the argument, to just put it in perspective, the difference in votes between Raila Amolo Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013 was 800,000 votes. Now, if you just count the number of spoilt votes plus the number of people who didn't turn up, it more than makes up that difference, you see. So it is critical, again, for each political party to have critical turnout within the areas of strongholds and also in the places that are now considered swing areas.
It can be a make or break for politicians.
It not even can be, it will be. In fact, I was telling someone today that I can probably predict for you the winner of Tuesday's election just by voter turnout alone. That's how critical it is, because once you have, for example, if the Luya vote turns out and let's say at 60%, then you've lost around close to 600,000 votes.
It's a big number.
It's a big number, you see, and it can shift the election. So it is going to be about turnout in a very huge way.
Prof,
Yeah.
how important is it?
The turnout is critical to everybody, because every vote counts. And the assumption that my vote will not count is actually a defeatist way of defeating your candidate, assuming you have a particular candidate.
Yeah.
So it is critical that people be mobilized. Until a week or so ago, there appeared to be no passion in this election.
Yeah.
And in the last week, I think we've seen some momentum picking up. And when you have emotion coming into it, passion coming into it, it is likely to stimulate people to vote.
Yes.
So the vote turnout is going to be higher than it would have been a week ago. You know, there is no question about it. And we saw that with the rallies in the last 2 days. You can see some emotionalism coming up. And that in itself might motivate a lot of people saying, I have to get out. I have to go and vote for my candidate, whoever that is.
Mark, that's a healthy environment, right?
It's an excellent environment. It's a good environment because then people are taking stake in their civical existence in this country. It's critical because, again, Kenyans are owning their decisions. You know, a lot of the time, if you withdraw from voting, then you don't own the decisions of the next 5 years. And then that also tells you that whoever wins, the Kenyans will hold them to account, which is a critical exercise. Because when they show up en masse to vote, that means they have interest in what is going to happen in the next 5 years in the nation. So it's very good for our democracy. It's excellent for our democracy. It shows that we are maturing. And then, of course, let's not forget that this has been one of the most peaceful electioneering periods in the history of our nation. You know, no tribal clashes, there have been no major incidents of violence, and that's a big step for our nation. It shows that we are growing up quite well.
And talking about security and security concerns, of course, there are those who are saying, you know, the voter apathy or some sort of low turnout, especially the cost during the 2013 general elections, is because of the emergence of, you know, militia groups like the MRC and these other groups. How important is it to protect voters?
It's absolutely critical because one of the things that we know for sure, no one will show up to a polling station where they feel insecure. But the good thing is, in the run-up to this election, what has been very critical for us to realize is, unlike 2013, where we had a bomb blast in somewhere in Isili every 2 days and in Mandera and things like that, we've actually had a very peaceful election period. Number two, we've bolstered our police presence. We've trained more police officers. We've got more police officers than we've ever had in Kenyan history. So by and large, I predict a very peaceful election. And that is critical because you need people to feel confident that when I go to the ballot box, I am safe. And as the good professor also said here, it's also critical to remember that there are those members of society who are either illiterate or have problems with vision and things like that, who will need assistance in voting. And that goes to also them feeling secure enough to trust the officer that he will do what they're asking them to do. And this is very, very important.
Prof, as much as the campaign season, as Mark said, was merely, peaceful, and we will not ignore the fact that, the security agencies have deemed some areas as hotspots. How important is it to, make sure that these voters from those areas exercise their democratic right come Tuesday?
The presence of the security forces is a way of encouraging them that you need to vote. If you are peaceful, if you just want to vote, you have no problem with the security forces. Now, if you should have some strange ideas of disrupting the election process, and there may be a few people who have those kind of bad thinking, the presence of the security forces is to deter them, and that is a good thing to do. So the point being made is that everybody should go and vote candidate of your choice, whatever that is, and don't worry too much about the political, the thuggery, because I think this time the country is better prepared to deal with insecurity incidents than ever before. And it is a commendable thing that we have that. It is not the scenario that was there in 2007. It's not the scenario that was there in 2013. And if anybody is thinking that way, then they're out of their mind, because they should be dealt with firmly so that Kenyans can vote candidates of their choice, and the votes they cast will be counted the way they were cast, and they will be announced the way they were counted. So that's the kind of a very good assurance.
Going by the opinion polls, the pollsters releasing their results, of course, they've now, the job is done. Going by the results, they've clearly indicated that, a huge percentage of the opposition supporters don't believe in IEBC.
Well, that's the result of the opposition's politics, of NASA's politics. NASA has spent a lot of time discussing the referee, and the question would be, did they do enough of the actual playing of the game to score the goal? That's the question. Because, you can focus so much on making sure the referee is good and stuff like that. But then, when you get into the match, you still have to play the game. So this election is actually going to be a referendum on NASA's politics, whether their game plan was strong enough to carry them through. Personally, as a communication strategist, I would have played down my fighting with IEBC, because you can go to court without making it a big deal. You can lobby without having it become a political ruse. Because my gut feeling, and I don't have any data to support this, is that typically what happens when you disparage your voters against the Electoral Commission, they might tend to feel like, okay, there's no need of voting because so-and-so has already won. So this is going to be a test, a true test, to see whether NASA's strategy in highlighting the IEBC is going to work for them or against them. And having said that, there are two branches of government that we need to understand have to play a key role in this particular election. The first part, of course, is the IEBC, and we've discussed that. The second part is the police. And I'd like to remind Kenyans, there is a statement that Moi used to say about the GSU. They were called Fanya Fujo Uone.
Yes.
We need to mature to a place where we understand that democratic expression does not need to be violent. We need to separate these two things. Okay?
Mark, speaking about the trust issues between the opposition supporters and IEBC, we all know that, the 2007 elections was deemed not credible.
Yes.
There were issues in 2013. So come fast forward to 2017. Of course, IEBC should not give room to any kind of blunder, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But I read a statement from Commissioner Kwamboka today in the morning.
Yes.
It was a very interesting read. And having been a presidential agent in the 2013 elections, I'll tell you for free and without bias that I think the IEBC is more prepared than I've seen it in a very long time.
So they've learned from previous mistakes?
I think absolutely they've learned from it. I think they've prepared for a lot of worst-case scenarios, which is critical. I think also the timelines that they've given to announce their results are within reason, they're within the bounds of logic. I see in fact, I would say there is less than 1% room for manipulation for this particular election. And that is something we can be proud of as a nation. It's going to be, I think, one of the most credible elections that we've ever had.
Prof, do you agree with them? That we're going to have the most credible election this
year? We are going to have a very credible election. I have a lot of confidence in the IBC. I also had a confidence in the other IBC that was unfairly kicked out.
Let's focus on 2017. That's not what I'm
doing. Prof, you know, there, I disagree with you.
That's okay. That is okay. Now, the problem we've had is the deliberate effort to cast aspersions on the IBC before they even do anything. On the day they were being sworn in, aspersions were being cast on them that very day. To put doubt and everything, and people saying that they are not going to a So and I remember asking, what the hell are you doing? These people are barely sworn in. Give them. So we have that segment of politicians and their fanatics who insist on discrediting the institution as preparation for possible rejection or noise making or whatever it is. So it is not unusual that we are seeing this because we have seen it before. The appeal is that they tone down on these things. I think the ODM team, he calls them NASA, the ODM team.
Yeah. They are NASA right now.
No, they are ODM. I think they have been blundering. You know, and I've told some of them, you've been blundering. You do not make statements that make you sound as if you are a warmonger. And they've made that mistake repeatedly. So the hope is that, I mean, it's kind of, we are in the final stretch. But it might cost them.
Of course, we do expect Peter Alingo is an election analyst to join us any moment from now. Of course, he's going to tell us what is expected from IEBC at this critical moment. But Mark, this criticism from opposition, you know, them poking holes into IEBC, there are those who are saying these are positive criticism that might end up help, you know, build the institution itself.
Yeah, and like I said before, we must separate between democratic practice and warmongering, and this is where it becomes important. And where I disagree with the professor is in 2013 there were issues of Chicken Gate, there were issues of the machines failing, and these are not issues that we can wish away.
The very serious allegation.
Yes, it's not an allegation. The machines did fail. You know, Chicken Gate is actually a done and dusted case in
somebody ate chicken.
Yes, someone ate chicken. You know, so for me, my standard that I hold my public officers to is quite high. And the reason why I'm comparing this IEBC and that IEBC, and I'm saying this one is better, is they're better prepared. Their machines are much better thought out of. The process is clearer. The transmission of data is clearer. What they're calling a backup system makes sense. You understand? So that in itself is a good virtue. Now, has the opposition helped? I talked to a lawyer, and the good thing is, in terms of jurisprudence and helping our court systems be better prepared and making critical decisions that will affect the 2022 and 2027 elections, absolutely. It is within their democratic right to practice those things. I think it's an excellent thing and an excellent show for us to have, one, trust in our judiciary, for the government to have respect towards judicial decisions. I think it's a step forward for our democracy. Where I differ, and I differ on this point as a Kenyan, it is not necessary to equate asking for fair space to the threat of violence. That is where I draw the line. Because any opposition party on earth is obliged to oppose. That is their job. Okay? But where we draw the line is it does not need to be about threatening violence. I've just disagreed with a good professor.
Yeah.
I'm not telling him, if you don't agree, I will rearrange your face. You understand? That's where we need to mature to.
No,
Yeah,
I would agree with him a little bit.
Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly. The point I was making is not the issues being raised about preparation and all. That's okay, and they should be. But the threats that have been repeatedly made on IBC, and sometimes the courts themselves.
So you agree with the message, but the manner in which the message is delivered is what you have
even the other
issues
day, the rally over here, when Kalonzo had a Karungu there, and he was saying, "Where Chiluba? Chiluba, Chiluba." You know, wait a minute, why are you threatening the fellow? That's the kind of violent message, which I think is can boomerang, because it's very clear it is a threatening thing, and a lot of people don't like that.
Exactly, Prof. Many thanks for that. Of course, we're going to talk more after this very short break right here on Kivumbi 2017 on KTN News. Of course, this is your election headquarter on a day. IEBC are distributing, the most crucial election materials needed on Tuesday. They have the job of distributing the ballot papers, the ballot boxes all across the 290 constituencies across the country, across all the 47 counties. I believe there are more than 40,000 polling stations in the country. So we will continue this conversation right here on Kivumbi 2017. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't go too far.